It is the second panel of the online day of the CESRAN 2023. And before starting, I need to mention that we are not going to have the Murat Çemrek's presentation because he has already done it yesterday. So we have just 3 presentations here, and one of them by Associate Professor Emrah Atar and Erdoğan. And other one is by Dr. Mehmet, Ferhat, Fırat, and the last one, Professor Meirowitz. The content of the panel and the title of the panel does not seem that it's perfectly matched, but still it's related. So we are going to have an extensive approach to Turkish related Middle East issues. That's fine. I am sure that we are going to have the really qualified presentations here. I don't want to take your time too much, but please, even if we have the 3 presentations in this panel, I kindly ask you to keep it in 15 minutes so that we can have lots of questions. Even if you don't have the lots of questions after the presentation, each one we can just end the panel before the time we are given. So please, just 15 minutes, and we are going to start with in line with the program. So Emrah, Atar, are you ready to go?
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. 15 minutes, I am counting it.
Thank you, Professor. It's nice to be here at this online. I wish I could make it face-to-face, but unfortunately we are in Turkey, and I have gone to the surgery 1 month ago. That's why I couldn't do it. So today I am going to talk about diplomacy and paradiplomacy, whether it's a challenge or an opportunity. And I will try to mention some findings that we got from field. It's an research that we are doing with Associate Professor Erdoğan from Recep Tayyip Erdoğan University. So I hope you will find it valuable. And so why we choose paradiplomacy and diplomacy? Because the term paradiplomacy describes an operation carried out by subnational actors. What do I mean by subnational actors? Such as regional governments, municipalities, non-governmental organizations, or other local authorities that you can call whatever you want. So in the area of when we talk about these subnational activities or actors, we talk these actors in the area of political science, public administration, international relations. So it's a little bit broad area that we can talk. So interactions with foreign governments, interaction with international organizations, interactions with other non-governmental organizations can be part of these activities as well. So how they can be part of these activities? They can be a part of these activities with geared advancing the interests of the subnational bodies in the target. So the currently operating process of globalization, regionalization, or digitalization. So because of all of this, in the growing in decentralization of power and authority away from the national governments and towards subnational groups, these all change pressure over diplomacy with the emergence of paradiplomacy that we call. Thus, it is no more possible to have a comprehensive understanding of diplomacy solely by relying upon the, how can I say, traditional state-centric models and approaches, because it is also important to consider the paradiplomatic activities of the subnational actors to have a better understanding of state diplomatic activities. So in this perspective, paradiplomacy is performing a progressively significant character in determining the political climate around the world, and this trend is likely to persist in coming years. When we move in this direction, paradiplomacy also observes its place in a broad framework in Turkey as well. That's why we chose Turkey as a case study. And the ability of subnational actors to establish various partnerships on the international arena, it is one of the concerns that organizations face in this context. International partnership to be established also mean the internationalization of subnational actors. That's why we choose this study. So in this study, the example of Turkey will be empirically covered because Turkey, the government changed Turkey to Türkiye, so we call it Türkiye now. Turkey provides an interesting case study for understanding the dynamics of paradiplomacy and its implication for traditional diplomacy. That's why Turkey is a strong country, strong central country for the government, but also has a significant degree of regional diversity and history of subnational activities that engaging with other countries as well. That's why we chose Turkey as a case study. So we are talking about diplomacy and paradiplomacy. So when we look at the literature, and I will try to explain a little bit on diplomacy and paradiplomacy, then I will talk about our findings, previous findings from this research. So what is diplomacy? Maybe we all know the meaning of the diplomacy, but when we look at the literature, diplomacy is examined. It is seen that there is no consensus on the concept, and there are different definition efforts on the diplomacy. So, for example, Satov in the late of 90s, he expressed the diplomacy as the application of intelligence and tact to the conduct of official relations between the government of independent states. For example, between Turkey to Greece, between Turkey to Germany. So different independent states. Satov also emphasized that the peaceful conduct of trade means between states in this process is important. When we look at this, diplomacy seen as the conduct of international relations through negotiation and other peaceful means designed to directly or indirectly encourage negotiation. So we can give some example in this one. For example, gathering information or creating goodwills maybe can be some good example in this direction. So in different perspectives, so when we look at it, maybe diplomacy used to be more inclusive, but it has become a state-centered practice in the modern period. When we look at the late 90s and the starting of 20,000 millennium, it's used as a practice of modern period. So this first major transformation in diplomacy after the establishment of the modern states, paradiplomacy occurred with the First World War. We can say that in the modern period. So during this period, all understanding of diplomacy has been changed, switched to a new one, because we are going to a modern, a globalized world. That's why diplomacy is important term for public administration, political science, and international relations, especially for the foreign affairs. So what is paradiplomacy in this direction? Paradiplomacy first in the 21st century, taking subnational actors' behavior into account, which has become more prevalent in foreign policy analysis. So, paradiplomacy is analyzed and should be analyzed as a new type of diplomacy when we look at the literature review, because paradiplomacy appears as a concept that introduced into the literature to express the activities that undertaken by subnational institutions or organizations. Like I said, regional governments, municipalities, local authorities, NGOs, that all can be involved in paradiplomacy in these directions. So when we look at the literature and when we look at the news, that we can see that paradiplomacy is increased currently. So this recent increase in paradiplomatic behavior has also, I can say that, an impact on paradiplomacy that is becoming conceptually popular in the world. We can hear that there is sister cities in the world. So it's an example for paradiplomacy when we look at it. So in this research, we used qualitative method. We made some interviews to understand the situation of paradiplomacy in Turkey. We have done about 20 interviews with foreign affairs officials, with academicians, with other organization representatives. In this direction, we've got some findings, but like I said during my presentation, these findings are provisional findings, so we are still gathering data on this. So when we look at the findings, the paradiplomacy, like I said, refers to diplomatic activities conducted by subnational entities, like I said, local authorities, municipalities, states, provinces, regions, or cities. Doesn't matter. We can categorize it in many spaces. So in this direction, during our interviews, we find that paradiplomacy can be both a challenge and an opportunity for diplomacy, depending on various factors and perspectives in Turkey. So, paradiplomacy is a challenge because of the complexity and coordination. Because paradiplomacy can introduce complexity into the international relations. Second, paradiplomacy is conflict and create conflict and competition in the international area, because subnational entities engaging in paradiplomacy may pursue their own foreign policies that sometimes create conflict or compete against the national governments. That's why there will be a competition between local governments and central governments. Third, inconsistency about the governments. Fourth, impaired national sovereignty is another challenge for paradiplomacy in Turkey. So when we look at the opportunities.
Let me interrupt you here. Within 2 minutes, could you please elaborate and end your presentation? Thank you.
No worries. I will talk about opportunities, then I will finish. So when we look at opportunities of paradiplomacy in Turkey, it helps economic development, because subnational entities often engage in paradiplomacy to promote trade, attract foreign investment, develop international partnership. Like I said, sister cities is a good example in this one. Second, paradiplomacy helps cultural and create soft power. How? Because paradiplomacy can promote a country's culture, art, and tourism, and make an interaction with other countries. So that's how you can take many more tourists to your country. It's also helped decentralization of diplomacy, It also helped conflict resolution, and it also helped innovation and experimentation in this direction. So, based on our finding, I would like to conclude, Professor Rahman. So when we look at the Turkey's experience with the paradiplomacy, paradiplomacy demonstrates that it can be a double-edged sword for diplomacy. While it offers opportunities for economic development, cultural promotion, and conflict resolution, it can also be a challenge related to coordination, representation, and conflict with the central government, like I said. The key lies in finding a balance between national and subnational interests and effectively managing these relationships to maximize the benefits of paradiplomacy can be a whole for a country like Turkey. So in this direction, I would like to finish my presentation because I can see Dr. Rahman, Professor Rahman is looking at me. Thank you very much, sir, for giving this chance to me to present my paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Even it is now virtual conversation and panels, you can feel my attitudes from the 2,000 kilometers away. That's fine. Thank you very much. Keeping on time your presentation. And next one is Dr. Mehmet Fırat, and his title is A New Dimension in Cyprus Problem Energy. It is the generally popular subject after the Russian-Ukraine war, and we will see what Dr. Mehmet Fırat will say about it. Mehmet Fırat, it's your turn to talk. You can start your presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for having me in this panel. Hocam, there is a light behind you. You are shining, Rahman Hocam.
Yeah, I don't need sun or any source of light to be shine. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to share my screen first.
Do you have screen sharing option? Okay, got it.
Okay, that's okay, thank you again. Hello, everyone. I'm going to present my work based on Cyprus problem with its energy dimension. What I mean by energy dimension, as you all know, several natural gas fields discovered in the Eastern Mediterranean over the past 2 decades. And this inevitably made the energy issue effective in the mutual relations of all actors in the region. Of course, regarding my study, the Cyprus problem is the most important issue, which has ongoing disputes between Turkey, Greece, and indirectly with EU. It has also a long historical background, but I won't go into details so as not to bore you. However, it would not be wrong to make such a claim. There will not be a peaceful environment or cooperation for all actors in the Eastern Mediterranean unless the Cyprus problem is resolved. So what makes Cyprus such important then? Cyprus has been at the center of many power conflicts throughout history. It is the largest island in the Eastern Mediterranean, and the developments experienced on the island, which has been of geopolitical importance throughout history, especially after the Second World War, constitute the reasons for the unresolved situation that continues to this day. And thanks to discovery of natural gas resources, the Cyprus problem has to be evaluated in a wider region than the Cyprus island. In this regard, the increasing power struggle in the Eastern Mediterranean with the energy resources discovered has gained a new dimension for the countries having guarantor status over Cyprus. The tensions in Turkey-Israel relations, developments such as the Greek Cypriot hydrocarbon resource exploration activities and the exclusive economic zone declarations have made it necessary for Turkey and other actors to pay a completely different attention and importance to the Eastern Mediterranean, especially to the Cyprus island. The old and new maritime and airspace problems related to Cyprus in the Eastern Mediterranean between Turkey, Greece, and the Greek administration have further increased with the discovery of energy resources, this enriching the dimensions of Cyprus problem. So what is the energy potential of Eastern Mediterranean and Cyprus in numbers? The current gas reserves detected in the Eastern Mediterranean correspond to 47% of the world's total. These new reserves in question are of close interest not only to the region and energy policies, but also to the countries in the Middle East and Europe, the major producers and major consumers region. The Eastern Mediterranean reserves are of great importance as an alternative to dependence on Russian gas, especially for EU member states. The first discovery offshore Cyprus in Aphrodite field, block 12, estimated 4.5 trillion cubic feet. To this day, there are 4 gas fields discovered offshore Cyprus by Greek Cypriot, and these fields' potential reserves 15 trillion cubic feet in total. This is approximately 10% of total Eastern Mediterranean gas reserve. So that's why this reserve important for EU countries which depended on Russian gas. To summarize the importance of natural gas in the Eastern Mediterranean, first of all, such a capacity is a very important opportunity for EU member states that are dependent on Russian gas. Secondly, countries that discover gas reserves show similar characteristics in terms of energy needs and dependence. These reserves are of vital importance for the economic development of these countries. This situation inevitably creates an energy equation in the Eastern Mediterranean, and the Cyprus problem is right at the heart of this equation. The tension that escalated on Cyprus due to gas discoveries has intensified, especially in the past decade. First, the Greek administration divided the island's surroundings into parcels and unilaterally declared exclusive economic zone and granted exploration licenses to companies, to international companies. Turkey opposed these practices on the grounds that the Greek side didn't represent the whole of Cyprus. Additionally, exclusive economic zone declarations overlap with Turkey's exclusive economic zones. In response to these moves, Turkey and Turkish Cypriots signed a continental shelf delimitation agreement in 2011, and Turkish Petroleum Corporation was granted licenses for exploration in the north, east, and south of the island. And the drilling ship named Saipem, belonging to Italian company Eni, was stopped by Turkey. Turkey started working in the area with both the Barbaros Hayrettin Pasha seismic research ship and the Fatih drilling ship. Since Cyprus has been a politically securitized area for so long, it was normal for the Turkish public to accept the future of reserves in the region as a matter of security. Undoubtedly, the unilateral moves of the southern side were effective in this. Greek administration signed exclusive economic zone agreements with neighboring countries before the political problems on the island were solved and without reaching a compromise with the Turkish Cypriot. The first agreement was signed with Egypt and with Lebanon in 2007. In 2010, the Greek administration signed another exclusive economic zone agreement with Israel and started hydrocarbon exploration activities in the south of the island and discovered natural gas deposits in the fields named Aphrodite and Glafkos. Another development that escalated the tension was the rapprochement between Israel and Greek Cypriots and Greece. Since the Mavi Marmara incident, Turkey-Israel relations were frozen for a long time. The existence of energy resources in the Eastern Mediterranean, of course, has led to the development of relations between Greek sides and Israel. In 2013, a high-level cooperation council meeting was held between two countries. The new relations between the Israeli and Greek sides were not only related to energy, but parties also held joint military exercise. This situation increased Turkey's threat perception. In the following periods, the developments that caused Turkey to further securitize the energy issue were the isolation of Turkey and Turkish Cypriots from EastMed gas pipeline and the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum. On November 2018, it was stated that Israel and Greek administration, Greece and Italy reached an agreement on the EastMed pipeline project. The EastMed pipeline project, it's planned to transport 20 billion cubic meters of gas per year to Europe. The cost of the EastMed project is estimated to be approximately $7 billion. Turkey accepts that the EastMed project is irrelevant to economic rationality and that the agreement was made with political calculations against Turkey. The exclusion of Turkey and Turkish Cypriot from the EastMed project emerged as a negative situation in terms of potential of energy resources to resolve existing conflicts in the region. Turkey was excluded from the new composition formed by the changing regional dynamics after the natural gas discoveries. Turkey sees the formation of the forum as a political project aimed at excluding itself, as is done in exclusive economic zone agreements and energy transmission projects regarding the region. In many of his speeches, President Erdoğan emphasized that these projects would not have a chance without Turkey and Turkish Cypriots. To summarize Turkey's reactions to all these developments, first, the Fatih drilling ship started hydrocarbon explorations in Eastern Mediterranean. The works of Fatih drilling ship were pioneered by Yavuz drilling ship and Kanuni drilling ship, and then Oruç Reis seismic research ships and Barbaros Hayrettin Pasha seismic research ships. Turkey has reached the hydrocarbon exploration capacity in the seas on its own, and that it has done this in the region where Turkey is experiencing the most tension in the seas at that time. In addition to increasing Turkey's seismic capacity, an important move is the agreement made with the Libyan government. We can say that the equation in the Eastern Mediterranean has changed with the Libyan agreement, because after this development, we will see signs of normalization, especially in Turkey, Egypt, and Turkey-Israel relations. The borders where the Libya agreement with Turkey emerged will be strained in the direction of possible border agreements that other countries will have in this region.
Dr. Fırat, sorry for interruption. I can see that you have still 4 slides more, but you have a couple of minutes to come to the conclusion. If you don't mind, could you please give general conclusion? Thank you.
I have 3 slides left. Thank you, Hocam.
Okay.
I will try to conclude. Okay, another important effect of the Libyan agreement, Turkey's natural resources exploration and exploitation activities in the region have gained an official basis. Perhaps one of the most important measures taken by Turkey in response to exclusion of Turkey and Turkish Cypriot are the NAVTEX announcements and Blue Homeland military exercise. In the middle of 2020, Turkey actively used the NAVTEX announcements Turkey has used Navtex announcements in the disputed regions as a diplomatic tool and a discursive signaling mechanism. Turkey stated many times that it will not recognize the license granted by Greek Cypriots and will intervene to stop the activities based on these licenses. In this context, actions such as the Mediterranean Shield Operation and Blue Homeland exercise were carried out by Turkey. Okay, I will conclude. The Cyprus problem, which has remained unresolved since the 1960s, has become even more complex with energy discoveries. I tried to analyze the gradually rising tension, especially in the last 20 years. However, in recent years, it can be observed that there has been a change in Turkey's foreign policy, especially on energy-related issues. The energy crisis between Russia and the EU due to Ukraine war was effective in this. Russia's statements that Turkey could become a gas center caused Turkey to change its attitude towards energy. At this point, especially with the latest developments, these discussion questions arise. Could Turkey's recent positive transformation in its relations, especially with Israel and Egypt, create a potential for cooperation in energy-related policies? Although it cannot be claimed that the tone of securitizing discourses in Cyprus has decreased yet, but can the Turkey, Egypt, and Israel normalization process have the same effect on the Turkey, Cyprus, and Greece triangle? As another factor, could this uncertainty of EastMed project and the issue of Turkey being the least costly route, also voiced by the actors in the Eastern Mediterranean and European countries, be the source of the normalization process? These are my questions. These are questions that I am trying to answer. That is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening, Rahman Hocam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mehmet Fırat. It was interesting subject and a popular subject. Anyway, I am sure that you will get lots of questions about it, but we need to quickly move to our third presenter here, Professor Meirowitz, and we would have a couple of at least 5 or 10 minutes to have questions for your presentation, Professor Meirowitz. So please just start your speech, and you can keep it between 10 and 15 minutes at most. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Rahman Hoca, and to my distinguished colleagues. I feel I'm there with you. I miss you all, and I hope I can be there again in person. But I certainly would say that the interactions I've had with you, Rahman Hoca, and your colleagues, Özgür Hoca and others, have been wonderful. And it is the greatest privilege for me to be part of this. Wow, these were 2 fantastic presentations and really gave me a lot of food for thought. But you know, the question of Turkish foreign policy after the May elections is really a very complicated question. But the one thing that we haven't talked about, which I think we have to, is the whole question of Ukraine, Russia, China. How does this all fit in to Turkey's and Turkey's position on foreign policy? To me, what motivated my thinking was Chancellor Scholz's article in Foreign Affairs, where he says there's a Zeitenwende, there is a tectonic shift in world politics. And clearly, this shift affects everything. U.S. foreign policy, Turkish foreign policy, and in particular, I wanted to hit on a few points related to Turkish foreign policy that really also relate to some of the things that we talked about before. I mean, just reacting quickly, the excellent presentation by Emrah Hoca on the diplomacy led me to think about the Armenian-Turkey soccer or football game. That was quite inconceivable probably a number of years ago, but that's hopefully that situation would stabilize. But I think also the presentation by Mehmet Hoxha on the energy also influences our thinking in terms of where does that all go. But it all goes in the context of Turkey's relationship with the United States and obviously with Russia and the Ukraine crisis. I don't want to overemphasize it, but it clearly is there. It's the elephant in the room. I just wanted to start with the elections for a moment, for 2 minutes of a comment on the latest issue of Political Reflection magazine, which has this brilliant cover with Rahman Hoxha's article on the least unwanted candidate. You know, it gave me a reflection into American politics, because what we're dealing with the United States is exactly the same issue. We have two candidates, and neither of them are wanted. I don't know if that's the same situation as in Turkey, but it certainly is the problem in the United States. And they're very, very different, obviously. But I think that is a ubiquitous problem in international relations and in state politics today. I mean, we have candidates all over. They're very contentious. So the Turkish election, I wrote an article, I had the privilege of writing for Political Reflection. I have my ideas. The discussion in the American press was very, very contentious on this subject. That maybe is another discussion for another day. Let me go over some of the big issues I think are in Turkish foreign policy after the elections. Certainly, we have the conundrum, and it is a conundrum, on the accession of Sweden and Finland to NATO. And I mean, to me, this one, I don't really follow it because, is Sweden in NATO? I don't know. Does anybody know the answer to this? I mean, I think it depends on the ratification of the Turkish parliament. Am I right, to my colleagues? And therefore, what I don't understand is why didn't the parliament ratify it? Because the AK party has the majority in that parliament. So that, for American thinking, is completely inscrutable. We don't understand that. But certainly that was a step in the right direction. Long overdue, to say that Sweden would enter NATO. Why is that? Because everything, the fulcrum of everything, is Ukraine. In the mind of the United States, Russia and China are the principal pivots and the principal focus in politics. So the question is, how does Turkey fit into that? And certainly, President Erdoğan has been able, and I think quite masterfully, to balance a number of things that other states have not been able to do. He's been able to say that he supports Ukrainian accession to NATO, supports providing assistance, military assistance, drones, including that highly touted Bayraktar drone to Turkey. Yet at the same time, Turkey does not support the sanctions against Russia. In addition, Turkey and Russia, through President Erdoğan, have been negotiating on the grain. And actually, there was one very successful negotiation where grain came out, and that was touted and recognized as a great accomplishment. The issues continue on that. Russia's intransigence, and of course, its aggression against Ukraine stands out and makes everything, which is what Schultz is talking about, everything else is commentary. The idea that you could have a state like Russia invade a sovereign state like Ukraine changes everything, including the whole idea about the efficacy of diplomacy. Diplomacy in this atmosphere is very perilous. What are you negotiating with? You're negotiating with Russia, which is a state which commits humanitarian atrocities and aggression against a sovereign state. So I think that the American mind, the American politics, recognizes Turkey's intercession on this as very, very helpful, including the fact that Turkey has a bridge to Russia and has a connection with Russia, which is very helpful. And I think with all politics being local, an impact of the Congress on providing military aid to Turkey, it's very, very important Turkey has positioned itself in this way. And that relates, of course, to the S-400, the F-35s, and the F-16s, for which we don't have time to go through it. But the fact is That was, again, in my humble opinion, a tremendous misstep on Turkey's part, understanding all of the justifications and arguments for it, but it created a tremendous problem because it buttressed and justified the detractors in Congress who have been against providing aid to Turkey. Now, the F-16s obviously are on the table now, and they've been opposed by Senator Menendez. We have to see how that turns out. Hopefully that will turn out positively and Turkey will receive the F-16s. But again, everything goes around, relates to the central fulcrum, I would argue. Now, as far as EU accession, that one, honestly, I thought surprised me. I almost fell off my chair. I thought, wait a minute, Turkey wants to get into the EU. Is that a new idea? Turkey's been trying to get into the EU, and 500 million obstacles have been placed in the way of Turkey's accession to the EU. To me, it's a no-brainer, but it apparently was a big issue for Europe. To my mind, on that one, I think that Turkey will not accede to the EU, but at the same time, it will achieve some basic concessions from the Europeans because of Turkey's clear central position in terms of being a player on the international arena and also in terms of Ukraine. Now, about the third way, and this gives me a lot of things to think about in just a few minutes, all these countries, I mean, certainly France and India, Turkey, all these countries are all trying to find a path to be the third way, to be the pivot, to be the separate pivot from the great powers. I say, I'm sorry, this is my American thinking, no, not a chance. There is no multilateral world. There is a world of US, Russia, and China. And now Russia and China seem, for at least for the time being, to have well, maybe not for the time being. They say they're going to have an alliance forever. They're going to be friends forever and ever, right? And we know in international relations, there's no chance of that. But at the present time, we have a new axis that's developing in terms of Russia and China and North Korea and Iran. These malevolent powers are getting together. And the question to me, the central issue for Turkey, central issue, and it is a major participant and player in international relations, is which road will Turkey take? Which road will it follow? And to my mind, I've always thought that the road to the West, to NATO and the alliance, notwithstanding the bumps and the glitches and the problems with that, is the road that Turkey needs to take. Now, just a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about, because obviously there are really big developments in Turkish foreign policy very quickly. Of course, as has been discussed so very well about the Cyprus crisis and, of course, the energy in the Mediterranean, but the relationship with Israel and Egypt, but particularly with Israel, is so significant. There's lots of talk now about a Turkish-Israel pipeline. I mean, who would have thought that possible years ago? It's a tricky situation, tricky position for President Erdoğan in terms of Israel and Turkey's policies in the Middle East. Very tricky. But at the same time, very, very important for Turkey and Israel to increase and improve their relations. Why? Because, as has been so eloquently pointed out, this Eastern Med Forum, which was created, became a lever against Turkey. In other words, you had Turkey with its exploration ships in the Eastern Mediterranean, and Turkey, I was told, you can't explore. Yet the other states were there exploring, and that just was unfair. Now, to the postscript about Cyprus, my feeling about it, in my heart of hearts, I have always felt that the treatment of Turkish Cyprus has been wrong, unfair, and maybe there's a way to open that pivot and to do something on that one and the improved relations with Greece. Now, I do say that clearly, yes, am I done?
Not yet, but within 2 minutes, then we might have time to ask you questions.
Okay, 2 minutes. I can do it. I'm a lawyer, but
okay.
I'm a lawyer. I can finish a summation in 2 minutes. In conclusion, I think I would say that Turkey faces tremendous, obviously, internal challenges, economic challenges to get its economy going. You've got Mehmet Çemrek in there now, and that's, I think I heard him a number of years ago at the National Press Club. Hopefully, good developments fix the economy, internal but at the same time, Turkey faces very significant challenges in the region and internationally. And working together, I feel, with NATO and on the Ukraine war, maybe Turkey can be the mediator to end the Ukraine war, but to me, Ukraine is pivotal. And that's the one that needs to be resolved. We could talk about China separately, but the Russia-Ukraine issue is the central issue in the minds, certainly, of American foreign policy makers and American legislators. And in that, I respectfully conclude to my very wonderful and distinguished colleagues.
Okay. Thank you very much to all the presenters and the audiences that have been listening to us. And I think the presenters have given us the quite interesting and qualified presentations that leads to lots of questions. Quality brings lots of questions to increase the quality. So I am expecting from the audiences or from the presenters to other presenters ask some questions to improve our discussion qualification. So anyone who wants to ask a question, raise your hand, just unmute yourself and you can ask your question by yourself. If not, I will take the privilege. Ihsanullah, I can see, okay, we got another one. Ihsanullah, before you, I think Mehmet Şirin Uğurlu sent a written question, so I will, Professor Mark, can you see the question on the chat side? Okay, it's directly to me. Mehmet Şirin Uğurlu,
I don't see.
Mehmet Şirin is not, yeah, he is here. Mehmet Şirin, you can ask your question by yourself, by virtually, so by verbal way, so I don't need to read it up. Can you unmute yourself?
Wait. No, I don't see it.
Yeah, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, Professor.
Yeah, go ahead, ask your question.
All right, Professor, thank you very much for your presentation first and also the speech. And I would like to ask, it may not be connected to your presentation or speech, but I would like to ask my question about the indictment against the former president of the United States, Trump, and also presidential candidate Trump. What is the impact of this investigation on the political process of the 24? Thank you.
Who's supposed to figure that one out? Who is it? Who's supposed to answer that one? Was that for me or for my distinguished colleagues?
Yeah, you are the one first. You need to.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
if
you want to take responsibility, then
I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it, and you can see me on Turkish television all the time talking about this, because apparently there's a fascination in the world about President Trump. But you're asking about the political. I think the most interesting thing was Putin's comment in the newspaper I read today or yesterday, that Putin said that the charges against Trump are persecution. I thought that was one of the most fascinating comments, because as you know, recall, Trump had a pretty, good relationship with Putin. And Trump keeps saying that, if I'd be president, the Ukraine war would go away. There'd be no Ukraine war. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And we also had a political debate among the Republican candidates, which touched a little bit on foreign policy, a lot on Trump. So let's just see if I could conclude in 1 minute, because my chair here is going to make me stop. But the point is, American politics is in complete turmoil. We are distracted by Trump and his 4 indictments, 91 counts. Are they valid? My lawyer's side says, I'm not so sure, but yet America preoccupied. Now the House Republicans are opening an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. So all we're going to be doing in America for the next year till November is thinking about Trump's indictments and Biden's impeachment inquiry instead of looking at our problems. So the answer is the impact is powerful. And Trump could actually become president even after being indicted or convicted. So how crazy is that? Okay, that's what I think.
Thank you very much for the question and also answer. And Ihsanullah, if you are here and unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Yes.
Could you please First,
you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you. You can say
Okay.
your affiliation or give some information and to whom you are going to ask the question. Please specify that.
So-
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Professor Mark. My question is to Professor Mark. I listened to one of the part where he said that the world is going into multipolarity, where he mentioned Russia, China, and also the United States. But don't you think, Professor Mark, that the world is actually going to unipolarity, where Russians are fighting a war, they might probably lose or they might not lose, but China and US are still kind of competing on the world stage?
I actually said
If we-
something, maybe. I agree with your point. I think your point is very well taken in Sanula Bay. I think I think it's exactly as you said. I think I said that actually. I said that multipolarity. I said forget about it. Maybe that's how we talk about it in Manhattan. But there is no I agree with you. I think it's all about unipolarity. That's what we're dealing with, and particularly the importance of the position of the United States in the world. All of the third way powers, I don't think will be able to survive by just trying to find their own way, like France and India and maybe even Turkey. So I do agree with you. Russia's fighting a war, but it's also creating alliances with other states, like North Korea and Iran. And then, of course, there's the Middle East, and where you have China now becoming the matchmaker between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So the key pivots, I think, as you correctly point out, we're not dealing in multipolarity is not what's happening. I agree with you thoroughly in what you said.
If there's no more question, I will. Professor Mark, you have 3 minutes left, so I can ask a question. Do you have time for that?
Yes, sure. Yes.
Okay. You asked the question by yourself in your presentation. In which direction Turkey goes? So, what is your stand with that question? Is it going to the west, or you asked the question that which direction Turkey goes now, in the western direction or in the eastern direction? Because that has been a discussion about the Turkish foreign policy maybe for 3 decades from now on, since the 1990s. So
Exactly.
for now, under the recent developments, so what is your stand about it? Turkey, is he getting a part of Eastern alliances? Because you don't count Turkey when you count Russia making alliances. You just mentioned Iran, China, and North
Right.
Korea, but you don't give any space to Turkey in that alliance. So you think that the Turkey still is a part of the Western alliance? Thank you very much. That was my question.
Well, I mean, I'd like to hear from my colleagues as well, because I think that, to me, the way the American mind looks at it, Turkey is a transactional player, and it's being transactional. I mean, it's making transactions with Russia, transactions with the US to get F-16. It's doing transactions, and that is not an efficacious and effective way to go. So to me, the Russia road, look, I think Russia fought 17 wars with Turkey. 17 wars, is that right? So we know we have to be careful about the Russian bear. It's very, very, very dangerous when they hug you. So I think that the direction for Turkey is clearly should be to the west, to NATO, but at the same time, there is a utilitarianism in the fact that Turkey has a relationship with Russia and deals with Russia, certainly in terms of the Ukraine situation. Look, it can make a grain deal, it can deal with Russia, it can do all sorts of things that other states have to be positioned on one side or the other, but they're positioned on all sides. So I think that makes them a very important regional and international player. So I didn't answer your question, but I'm hopeful that Turkey can find its way in the right direction. You're muted.
Ihsanullah says that he has another question for you. If you have time, we can just take the
I have
question
another-
and
yes,
let
yes,
you.
of course,
Yeah,
of
okay.
course.
Ihsanullah, go for it.
So, Professor Mark, actually, you mostly talk about like Russian, that they're totalitarian, all of those kind of stuff, and then when we hear the John Mersheimer's theories of realism, he argues that it was the American failure, and because of the American failure, this war has happened due to the Budapest agreements between NATO and Ukraine and all of that. It was not basically an agreement, but a way to an agreement to join the NATO alliance. Now, my question is, as the United States withdraw from Afghanistan, can the world trust the United States that they will not leave Ukraine?
You know, I'd like to hear from my colleagues too on this. I mean, gee whiz, can the United States be trusted? The Afghanistan withdrawal was a shame. It was a scandal. It was horrible. And many Americans feel that way. Americans do not leave their friends behind. We did that. We had the same thing with Vietnam withdrawal. We don't leave friends behind, and we don't leave Americans behind. And we did that. And that is a shame. And that will have an impact maybe on the election in 2024. It's up to the people to decide. America is in a tough place right now. We have, as I said, the projection of power. You know, it's kind of Richard Haas, his book, Foreign Policy Begins at Home. Our home is messed up. Our home politics is completely a disaster. So your question is very perceptive, but at the same time, we have problems that we are so compelling, the immigration problem, the problem of internal turmoil, that to be able to think straight in terms of our foreign policy is very difficult. At the same time, the Russia-Ukraine war, you're right, it's hard to predict, but it was a mistake. Ukrainians are sitting there thinking, now, why do we give up on nuclear weapons? That's a ridiculously stupid decision in retrospect, but at the time, it seemed like the good diplomacy approach. To go back to my distinguished professor's comment, diplomacy looks good. But at the same time, look again, how come we have a problem with China today? Kissinger and Nixon. We wouldn't have the problem today. They opened up to China. They let China in, including Clinton and the others, let them in, traded with them, opened up the idea that China would follow the rules-based order, and they didn't. So we have to be clear-eyed in terms of how we proceed as American foreign policy. But I do agree with you that Afghanistan and other things like that that was tremendous mistake and utterly horrible. And what has happened in Afghanistan with the takeover of the Taliban is a heartbreaking, horrific development, especially the way the Taliban lie regularly. When they said women could be educated, they just lie. They're the ones that are not trusted. I think the Americans at least try to, put forward something that is believed to be what America can do. But of course, there are constraints. And never forget the domestic constraints. There are domestic constraints in American politics on foreign policy. But a profound and awesome question, but we can only ruminate on it to see, and hopefully America will make the right decisions going forward.
Thank you very much. And I'm expecting more questions from the audiences, all the presenters. I haven't got one, so I will ask questions starting with Emrah, Associate Professor Emrah. Are you here?
I'm going to have to
Emrah.
leave shortly, so
okay, go ahead. Thank you very much for your
apologize.
presentation and contribution.
I have a meeting I have to go to, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. See, so I have to rush to campus. Thank you very much, and what an honor and a privilege. Have a wonderful day.
See you in the CESRAN 2024.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay, so are you here, Emrah? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Okay. It was too theoretical explanation, but I don't hear some case studies. You said you have already interviewed with some officials and maybe NGOs, but do you have any specific institutions or organizations to test your theory that the paradiplomacy is a challenge and opportunity for diplomacy in Turkey?
So yes, sir. So we have got some interviews with Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we got some interviews with academicians, and then based on these interviews, some interview from Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that Ministry of Foreign Affairs doesn't have a systematic policy, or they don't have a strategy against paradiplomatic activities, which is carried out by the foreign countries in Turkey. So instead of that, they said that there is response development that focuses on like interviewing at the moment of the problem. That was what we got from the interviews from the foreign affairs institutions. From the academic, when we look at in general, they said there is hostility towards Turks and Muslims in religious books in Europe, in middle of Europe, in east of the Europe. So that was, you know, I am talking about the diaspora. In you know, many Turks moved to Europe, and that's why the foreign affairs have to work coordinately with the other countries. But currently, because foreign affairs doesn't have a systematic policy on the paradiplomacy, that's a huge challenge for Turks living in the Europe and maybe in the Middle East. So in general, like I said, it's an ongoing project. We have not finished all the interviews yet, but in general, I can say that that's what we found from the interviews. You are muted, sir.
I am asking about the you said subnational groups or institutions. Aren't they? You should interview with them as well. Yeah, you know. The
We are going
problem
to.
is that. So,
Yes,
do you
yes.
have any specific? For example, you know, IHH in Turkish. I don't know how they pronounce in English. IHH. I don't know, but it's an international actor, international organization, and certified by the UN and the other humanitarian organizations. So, do you have such kind of organization that test your theories? Are they really challenging or providing opportunity for diplomacy?
So we divided our project into two space. So in the first one, we are going to just focus on the governmental bodies. For the second one, we are going to make it whole. We are going to include, like you said, non-governmental organizations as well. That's why during this time, because we are giving like 6 months, that's why we didn't make any interview with the, like you said, IHH or other non-governmental organization. In the next year, we are planning to do a broader project on this one.
Okay, thank you very much. And by the way, feel free to ask any question, and you can just disrupt my speech and any other thing just for the question is fine. Otherwise, I am gonna take the lead and ask another question to Dr. Mehmet Fırat. Okay? No
Can
question?
I shoot first before you do? Can I have one to your Dr. Mehmet Fırat?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ferhat. It's great to see you again after a very long time. It's been nice to see you. And thank you for the presentation very much. It was a very delightful one. Listening you also was an honor for us. So my question is the maritime deal between the Turkey, or the official name right now, and the Libyan government, which has been declared and signed in 2019. How do you rate the relationship between Turkey and the Southern Cyprus in terms of these energy strategies and the distribution through the region? Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't hear your question, Shirin. Can you ask again?
Sure, of course.
I have an issue about my.
No, that's all right. Of course, with pleasure. I do again, of course. The question, the maritime deal has been done and signed and declared between the Turkey and the Libyan government in 2019, and it's also been ongoing since that time, in a place it is, of course. So how do you read this? Is there an impact of this on the strategies of the security of the energy in the region? And if there is one, what is it in terms of the relationship between Southern Cyprus, as in terms of a Greek population, of course, and the government, and the Republic of Turkey? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Firstly, Libyan agreement create an opportunity for both Turkey and Libya and the Turkish Cypriot in Eastern Mediterranean equation, because with this agreement the borders will be strained in the direction of possible border agreements that other countries will have in this region. So this agreement leads the other countries such as Israel and Egypt to change their attitudes in Eastern Mediterranean and on energy-related issues. So that's why the Turkey-Egypt and Turkey-Israel normalization process started. I read like this the situation. So in future of Eastern Mediterranean, the Libyan agreement with Turkey can make can create an environment for cooperation. So that's my answer to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone who would like to ask questions? No. We don't have to complete the
May I ask a question?
Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Fırat. May I ask you a question?
Yes, Hocam, please.
Do you think that EU still dependent on Russian gas?
Yes, I think, but when we talk about EU, which states we consider? That's the problem. Which member of EU dependent on Russian gas? When we talk about this, actually we consider the Germany. It's 50%, approximately 50% of its natural gas dependent on Russian gas. But the other countries, like France, like Italy, they are not dependent on Russian gas. So here, Eastern European countries actually mostly dependent on Russian gas. So that's that creates a complex in my subject for European energy security. When we try to analyze this subject, this case, the European energy security, the EU dependent on Russian gas. Okay, so which country, which member dependent on Russian gas? So I think not EU completely. So that's why the EU don't have an energy security union. So they don't have an opinion, the complete opinion on energy security of EU. So for your question, I don't think EU, whole EU member states depended on Russian gas, but like Germany, which is the largest economy of EU, depended on Russian gas.
Thank you for that answer to my question. I asked that question for a reason. It is kind of there's a following question to that one. I think that there is a fact right now in in the system that energy can be used as a tool for kind of resolution initiatives. So do you think that, or what is your opinion about that kind of initiatives, to using energy cards for a tool for some kind of resolution initiatives? What is your opinion there?
Resolution for Cyprus issue, or
might be, or other ones. At the end of the day, it is kind of a tool. It seems that.
I think the energy could resolve the problem, because in history we can show, we can see the examples of this. I can give an example like European Coal and Steel Community. So the foundation of European Union is based on energy relations. So energy here in Eastern Mediterranean for Cyprus issue, I can say that it can solve the problems if a corporation can make cooperation environment can resolve the problems for Cyprus or in Eastern Mediterranean. I can say that.
Thank you. Appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Okay then. Any other question? I am checking the chat section and there is no question there. Marco, you don't say and comment anything. That's surprising. Okay. I have asked my question as well. So that's gonna be end of our second panel today. Thank you very much for the presentations. They were quite nice and interesting. And for the audiences, I would like to thank them to be with us in this panel. And I expect you to see all of you and presenters and audiences in the next panel, which is going to start at 2 p.m. in Lisbon time. Thank you very much for everything and see you in the next panel. Bye.